For Donald Trump and the MAGAs in Congress, this is not about fighting crime or about public safety. This is about sowing fear and intimidation and division among Americans. It was about creating a pretext to send armed military troops into our communities. This is about consolidating power in Donald Trump's hands. What he plans to do with that power, now or during the 2026 elections, should worry all of us. When you add to that the Trump administration's effort to label as dangerous free speech critical of him, White House senior staff calling the Democratic Party fascist, the Trump-appointed FCC chair threatening to revoke broadcast licenses and the approval of a merger in order to silence late-night comedians, Trump's threats to jail political opponents, you cannot call this anything except an attack on the Constitution of the United States.
Dude, did you look in the fucking mirror, you stupid muppet?
Donald Trump doesn't want a democracy. He wants a throne, and his cronies are clearing the way. The president and his lapdogs here in the United States Congress, the vice president, the FCC chair, the attorney general, secretary of state, and congressional Republicans are implementing a dangerous agenda to punish their opposition. Fascism is not on the way. It is here.
Let me ask you tonight, do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
And I think it's really important we need to stand up against this. Fascist takeover, that's not a bad word. It's a fact.
Collective effort is what's going to win the day against an administration that is, of course, moving away from a democratic institutions, democratic values, to something of fascism, or what we saw in Nazi Germany.
It's a complement to something that we need to be doing right now, which is engaging in far more work of transnational democratic solidarity with the democratic governments and the democratic movements and peoples and parties of the world.
Totally agree.
To try to prevent the spread of the lawlessness and the fascist chaos.
First, they come for the immigrants. Then they come for the judges. Who will be next in this fascist frenzy? Will it be you?
This is what kicking the shit out of fascism looks like. This is what it looks like. We've seen a lot of people cave to fascism in America. We're not.
Look, I was very clear when laying out and defining what MAGA Republicans have done, and you look at the definition of fascism, and you think about what they're doing in attacking our democracy, what they're doing in taking away our freedoms, wanting to take away our rights, our voting rights. I mean, that is what that is.
When we talk about progressive values, I can say what my progressive value is, and that is freedom over fascism.
Is the president aware of John Kelly's assertion that Donald Trump meets the definition of a fascist, and that Trump wanted the kinds of generals Hitler had?
I mean, look, you have heard from this president over and over again about the threats to democracy, and the president has spoken about that. You've heard from the former president himself saying that he is going to be a dictator on day one. This is him, not us. This is him. And it's not just us, the White House, saying this. You've heard it from officials, former officials that worked for the former president.
You're referencing, what General John Kelly has said, that his former boss meets the definition of a fascist. And I know you've said before that recently you said that Trump uses blatantly fascist rhetoric. Do you agree with John Kelly, with Vice President Harris, that Donald Trump does meet the definition of a fascist?
Caitlin, I do. And it's not only people like former Chief of Staff Marine General John Kelly who is telling us this and warning us. It's people who have really studied what fascism is and what fascist leadership looks like.
What do you mean by semi-fascism, sir?
In December, you will...
You know what I mean. Mr. Chairman, earlier this week, the president referred to the MAGA, Make America Great agenda, as almost like, quote, semi-fascism. You heard the president's inaugural address the same way I did. In that inaugural address, President Biden said, we should not view each other as adversaries in this country, but as neighbors, and we should treat each other with dignity and respect. How does semi-fascism, as a label for the Republican Party, fit with that inaugural address?
Well, the one thing that President Joe Biden has always been consistent. And he has always been somebody who does what my grandfather used to do, which is speak it plain.
Somebody has heard me say, fascism always requires a public enemy. Today they are telling you that it is immigrants and trans youth. Tomorrow it is whoever they deem undesirable or a threat to their fascism.
What do you think about the president calling millions of Americans semi-fascist?
Listen, he's got to express and be honest about what he feels in his heart and his soul. And I think that's probably exactly what he did.
I ran on this. You know, I come from a state that's run by a fucking fascist. And when yes, boo.
The former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, said, no one has ever been more dangerous to this country than Donald Trump, and he is a fascist to his core.
Right now, the question is, are Republican members of Congress going not only to roll over to Donald Trump's will, but to roll over our democracy and allow him to take over this country as a fascist dictator?
A fascist political party embraces or refuses to disavow political violence as an instrument for obtaining and maintaining political power.
And it's where the mayor will use their power to reject Donald Trump's fascism.
It could be anyone who stands against a fascist regime that is threatening a war against its own American cities, against its own Constitution, and against our own democracy.
Every down ballot race matters. This fascist administration didn't come from anywhere. They have planted the seeds for years.
But we got to come together because it's not each other that is the problem. It's the other side. It's the fascist. It's the wannabe dictator. It is, the hater in chief. It is the racist in chief.
Well, we are on the eve of an authoritarian administration. This is what 21st century fascism is starting to look like. Republicans really model themselves after Orban's Hungary.
Trump is taking the role of the fascist authoritarian and wants to scare the shit out of you by painting a dystopian America.
Donald Trump is a fascist.
White House senior staff calling the Democratic Party fascist. You cannot call this anything except an attack on the Constitution of the United States.
The fuck are you talking about, you insane fucking hypocrite? You're a fucking loser.